I always thought I knew my wife. Olivia and I had been married for 7 years. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that ever made me question her loyalty. She was beautiful, smart, and carried herself with an effortless grace that turned heads wherever we went. I used to feel proud knowing she was mine. But now, that same thought made my stomach turn. The first crack in my perfect world appeared in the form of a simple change. One that, at first, I dismissed. Olivia had always been a woman of routine. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, she went to her yoga class. Every Sunday, we had dinner at my parents' house. Every night, she'd curl up next to me with a book or her phone, scrolling absent-mindedly before bed. But then the routine started shifting. She started going out more, claiming she had networking events or girls' nights. I didn't think much of it at first. Olivia was in marketing, and socializing was part of the job. But then, the excuses got sloppier. One night, she said she was at a work dinner, but when I casually asked about the restaurant, she hesitated just a second too long before answering. Another time, she left for yoga, in heels and red lipstick. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was just being paranoid. But once you notice a crack, you can't unsee it. One evening, as she was getting ready to leave for another networking event, I decided to test something. She had left her phone charging on the nightstand while she showered. I picked it up, fully expecting it to be locked. But to my surprise, it wasn't. That's when I found the message. A single notification from a contact labeled R. We're set for tonight. Usual time. Usual place. Can't wait to see you perform. Perform? My chest tightened as I read those words. This wasn't some casual chat between colleagues. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Was she in some kind of secret theater group? A side project she hadn't told me about? The naive part of me wanted to believe that, but deep down I already knew. I was looking at the first thread of something much darker. I heard the water shut off in the bathroom. Without thinking, I placed the phone back exactly where it was and walked out, my heart pounding. That night, as Olivia kissed me goodbye and walked out the door, I made my decision. I was going to follow her. I waited exactly 5 minutes after Olivia left before grabbing my keys and heading out the door. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't paranoia. Something was happening, and I needed to see it with my own eyes. I kept a safe distance as I followed her car through the city, my heart hammering with every turn she took. She didn't go to a restaurant or a fancy lounge like she usually claimed. Instead, she pulled up to a place I'd never seen before. An old, elegant building tucked away in a quiet part of town. The kind of place that didn't have a sign. The kind of place that existed for those who already knew it was there. I parked a block away and watched as Olivia stepped out of her car, dressed in a sleek black dress that clung to her body like it had been painted on. She looked different, more polished, more deliberate. She wasn't just attending something. She was arriving. A valet greeted her with a nod, and she disappeared inside. I needed to get closer. I pulled my hood up, keeping my head down as I approached the entrance. There were no neon lights, no menus posted outside. Just a single brass plaque beside the door with 2 letters engraved into it. LV. I had no idea what they stood for, but something about them sent a chill down my spine. I lingered near the entrance, pretending to check my phone as a couple approached. The man, dressed in an expensive suit, whispered something to the woman on his arm before pressing his thumb to a small scanner beside the door. The light blinked green, and they stepped inside. Private club. Exclusive. Hidden. Olivia had access to this place. I needed to know why. I backed away before anyone noticed me, my mind racing. I couldn't just barge in. If I wanted answers, I had to be smart about this. I walked back to my car and sat there, staring at the entrance as the minutes ticked by. Then, an idea hit me. I had a friend, someone who owed me a favor, and he was very, very good at getting into places he wasn't supposed to be. I didn't sleep that night. After Olivia came home, hours later, smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't hers, she climbed into bed beside me like nothing had happened. I kept my breathing steady, pretending to be asleep as my mind replayed every detail of what I had seen. The club, the secrecy, the message. Can't wait to see you perform. I needed answers, and I knew exactly who could get them for me. The next morning, I sent a message to an old friend. Me need your help. Can you meet? Nick. Depends. Is this legal? Me not really. Nick, perfect. See you in an hour. Nick was the kind of guy who thrived in the spaces between laws. Not a criminal, not exactly, but someone who understood systems, how to bend them, how to slip through unnoticed. He once hacked into our university's grading system just to prove he could. I had a feeling getting into some exclusive underground club wouldn't be much of a challenge for him. We met at a small coffee shop, a place where people minded their own business. I told him everything, leaving nothing out. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. Dumb, man. And here I thought my ex was bad. I just stared at him. All right, he said, leaning back. First things first, this club. LV doesn't ring a bell, but I can find out. Private clubs like this usually have digital footprints, no matter how secret they think they are. I nodded. And getting inside? Nick grinned. That depends. You want to sneak in or get an invite? I hadn't thought that far ahead. Sneaking in was risky. One wrong move and I'd be out before I got any real answers. But an invitation? That meant I could walk through the front door. Get me in, I said. Like I belong there. Nick chuckled. Now we're talking. Took him less than 24 hours. The next evening, he sent me a message with a single line. You're now a guest of LV. Welcome to the show. I stared at the words, my pulse quickening. Tomorrow night I was going inside, and I was going to find out exactly what Olivia had been doing behind my back. The invitation arrived in the form of a sleek black card, tucked into an unmarked envelope and slipped under my front door. No name, no instructions, just 2 engraved letters in gold. LV. I turned the card over. On the back, a single sentence was printed in elegant script. Midnight. Dress accordingly. Nick had outdone himself. I spent the rest of the evening preparing, my mind racing with possibilities. Was this some kind of elite social club? A high-stakes gambling ring? A secretive society for the rich and bored? Whatever it was, Olivia had been there multiple times, and from the way she carried herself, she was more than just a guest. I had to be careful. At exactly 11:45 p.m., I arrived at the building, now dressed in a tailored black suit that I barely recognized myself in. The entrance was exactly as I had left it. Unmarked, discreet, giving away nothing. A man in a dark uniform stood by the door, his posture rigid, his gaze sharp. I handed him the card. He glanced at it, then at me, before stepping aside and pushing open the door. Enjoy the evening, sir. I stepped inside. The hallway was dimly lit, lined with deep red velvet. The air was thick with the scent of expensive cologne, wine, and something else I couldn't quite place. Soft music played in the background, the kind of melody that felt timeless, seductive, and slightly disorienting. As I moved deeper into the club, voices drifted through the space, hushed, murmuring in anticipation. I turned a corner and stepped into what could only be described as a theater. Plush seating surrounded a central stage, framed by heavy curtains. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting golden light over the audience, who lounged in their seats, sipping from delicate glasses. Some whispered among themselves. Others simply watched the stage in eerie silence. I took a seat near the back, my heart pounding in my chest. Then the lights dimmed. A slow hush fell over the room. The heavy curtains parted, and Olivia stepped onto the stage. I gripped the armrest of my chair so tightly I thought the fabric might tear. There she was, my wife. Olivia stood at the center of the stage, bathed in soft golden light, her posture relaxed, her expression unreadable. She was wearing a silk robe, cinched at the waist, her hair styled in loose waves. Around me, the audience murmured in approval. A few raised their glasses in silent toasts. She looked confident, at ease, like she had done this 100 times before. A man appeared beside her, dressed in an all-black suit. his face obscured by a simple Venetian mask. He leaned in, whispering something in her ear. She laughed lightly, her fingers grazing his arm in a way that made my stomach turn. My breathing slowed, my mind sharpening. This wasn't a theater in the traditional sense. This wasn't a play. This was something else. Olivia tilted her head back, her eyes sweeping over the crowd. For a moment I thought she saw me. My chest clenched, waiting for some sign of recognition. A flicker of hesitation, a falter in her perfect composure. But there was nothing. She smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that sent a ripple of anticipation through the room. I wasn't watching my wife. I was watching a performance. And I was the only one in the audience who didn't know the script. The masked man took her hand, guiding her toward the center of the stage. The music swelled. The lights shifted. The audience leaned forward in their seats. And then, the curtains fell shut. The crowd erupted in quiet applause, as if they all knew what was about to happen. As if this was exactly what they came here for. I stood abruptly, my pulse pounding in my ears. I had seen enough. I needed to get out. I forced myself to move, weaving through the rows of plush seats, careful not to draw attention. My mind was spinning, my stomach twisting with something that was equal parts rage and nausea. I had followed Olivia expecting to uncover some secret affair, some betrayal that would be painful but understandable. Instead, I had walked into something else entirely. Something worse. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a mistake. This was a life she had built behind my back. I pushed open a side door, stepping into a dimly lit hallway lined with heavy red drapes. The muffled sounds of laughter and clinking glasses filled the space. A few other guests were moving about, speaking in hushed voices. No one paid me any mind. I needed air. I needed space. I needed... Lost. The voice came from behind me. I turned sharply. The masked man from the stage was standing there, watching me. Up close, I could see that his suit was perfectly tailored, his posture effortless. But it was his mask that unsettled me. The smooth, expressionless white covering his face, hiding everything but his piercing blue eyes. I kept my face neutral, just looking for the bar. He tilted his head slightly, as if assessing me. First time. I nodded, trying to seem indifferent. Something like that. He chuckled, a low, knowing sound. It's always fascinating to watch a newcomer. You can always tell who they are. The way they sit so stiffly, unsure if they should be intrigued or horrified. I clenched my jaw. And which should I be? His eyes gleamed behind the mask. That depends on what you came here looking for. I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth. I came here looking for the truth. Instead, I had found a lie so much bigger than I had ever imagined. The man took a step closer. You seem tense. I forced a small smirk. Must be the atmosphere. Another chuckle. Or maybe it's the performance. He glanced toward the stage, where Olivia had just disappeared behind the curtain. She's quite something, isn't she? A wave of ice spread through my chest. You know her. He smiled beneath the mask. Everyone here knows her. My hands curled into fists. He leaned in slightly. Tell me, how did you get an invitation? For the first time that night, I felt something sharper than anger.
Danger.
I was being watched. I had walked into something far bigger than a cheating wife. And now I wasn't sure if I could walk back out. Every instinct in me screamed to leave. But I couldn't. Not yet. The masked man was still watching me, waiting for an answer. He had the ease of someone used to being in control, someone who enjoyed making people squirm. I forced a smirk. A friend got me in. His expression didn't change, but I saw the slight shift in his posture. Curiosity. And what did your friend tell you about this place? Not much, I lied. Said it was something I had to see for myself. He nodded slowly. Smart friend. A woman in a deep red gown brushed past us, her perfume cloying and expensive. The masked man's gaze flicked toward her, distracted for a brief second. That was my chance. Excuse me, I said smoothly. I think I will find that bar after all. I turned before he could stop me, striding down the hall, my heart hammering. I could feel his eyes on my back. I forced myself not to look back, not to run. I needed to find Olivia. I needed to get her out of here. But as I pushed open a heavy velvet curtain, stepping into a dimly lit lounge, I stopped dead in my tracks. Because Olivia was already here, sitting on a luxurious couch, drink in hand, laughing softly at something another man had said. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't uncomfortable. She belonged here, and I realized she didn't need saving. I did. I stood frozen at the entrance of the lounge, my pulse roaring in my ears. Olivia hadn't seen me yet. She was leaned back on the velvet couch, legs crossed, her posture relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. The man sitting beside her, older, expensive suit, sharp features, was speaking in a low voice, his hand resting casually on her knee. She didn't move it away. She laughed. Not the forced laugh she used at dinner parties. Not the polite chuckle she gave colleagues. A real laugh. Something in my chest twisted violently. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't guilt-ridden secrecy. She was comfortable. She was home. I took a step closer, and that's when it happened. Her gaze flicked up, locking onto mine. For a second, everything stopped. The easy smile on her lips froze. The warmth in her eyes vanished. Her fingers tightened around her glass. She wasn't shocked to see me. She was furious. I had expected guilt. I had expected fear. Maybe even shame. But Olivia wasn't afraid. She was angry that I was here. Slowly, she handed her drink to the man beside her and stood. Every move was deliberate, controlled. The Olivia I knew would have been flustered, tripping over her words, scrambling for an excuse. But this Olivia? This was a woman who had nothing to hide, only something to protect. And that scared me more than anything. She approached me, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. When she reached me, she didn't speak right away. She just stared, her expression unreadable. Then finally, "You shouldn't be here." Her voice was low, dangerous. I swallowed down the anger rising in my throat. "I could say the same to you." Something flickered behind her eyes. Something sharp, calculating. Then she smiled, a slow, practiced smile, and leaned in. "Leave," she whispered, "before you regret it." And just like that, she turned and walked away, disappearing behind another curtain. I stood there, my fists clenched at my sides, my entire world shifting under my feet. I had come here expecting to catch Olivia in a lie, but I was starting to realize I had never really known her at all. I stood there long after Olivia disappeared behind the curtain, my mind racing, my body locked in place. Leave before you regret it. She hadn't begged for forgiveness. She hadn't even tried to explain. She had warned me. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to breathe. I needed to get control of my emotions before I did something reckless. Around me, the lounge carried on as if nothing had happened. Men in sharp suits, women draped in silk and jewels, quiet laughter floating through the air like smoke. No one cared that my marriage had just shattered in front of me. I turned on my heel, heading for the exit, my heart pounding. But I wasn't leaving. Not yet. I needed to know everything. I moved through the hallways, my steps quiet, my mind calculating. Olivia had gone somewhere private, away from the main rooms. That meant she was either meeting someone or hiding from me. Either way, I needed to find her. I passed another masked man standing near a velvet rope, guarding a stairwell that led down into darkness. I didn't slow down. I walked past like I belonged there, keeping my posture easy, my expression blank. And just as I hoped, he didn't stop me. I slipped through an unmarked door and found myself in a dimly lit corridor. The air here was different, thicker, heavier, humming with something I couldn't name. Soft music played in the distance, a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Then voices. I moved toward the sound, pressing myself against the wall just before the entrance to another room. Olivia's voice drifted through the doorway, sharp and frustrated. "I told you I had it handled." A man chuckled, deep and amused. "Clearly you don't. He's here, isn't he?" My pulse slammed against my ribs. They were talking about me. Olivia exhaled sharply. I don't know how he got in, but it doesn't matter. He won't come back. Are you sure? The man asked, his voice laced with curiosity. Because from where I'm standing, he doesn't seem like the type to walk away so easily. A pause. Then Olivia spoke, her voice quieter. He's smarter than you think. There it was. The first sign that maybe, just maybe, she was nervous. I leaned closer, trying to see through the gap in the curtain. The man was seated in a high-backed chair, his face hidden in the shadows. He was older than me, his posture completely at ease, like he was used to being in control. Olivia stood in front of him, arms crossed, looking nothing like the woman I married. She looked like someone working for him. I forced myself to stay calm. I had come here looking for the truth. Now I was drowning in it. I stayed in the shadows, barely breathing. I had followed Olivia expecting an affair, expecting to catch her in some secret rendezvous with another man. But this was bigger. This was planned. And Olivia wasn't being seduced. She was involved. The man in the chair exhaled, the sound of ice clinking against glass. You should have told me about him sooner, he said. Olivia crossed her arms tighter. Because you would have done what? Threatened him? That's exactly why I didn't. Threatened? My fingers curled into fists. The man chuckled. You make it sound like I go around breaking kneecaps. You do, Olivia said flatly. He laughed again, a low, amused sound. Fine. But I prefer to see myself as a problem solver. I swallowed the rage burning in my throat. Who the hell was this man? And more importantly, how long had Olivia been tied to him? The man's voice softened slightly. What's the real problem, Olivia? Afraid he'll find out everything. She didn't answer right away. I leaned forward, straining to hear. Every muscle in my body coiled tight. Then, finally, if he keeps digging, Olivia said, her voice clipped, he's going to find out about the money. The floor felt like it tilted beneath me. The money? What money? I kept my breathing steady, but inside, my mind was running through every possible scenario. Olivia and I shared finances. As far as I knew, there was nothing unusual about our accounts. So what was she hiding? The man hummed thoughtfully. And if he does? He won't, Olivia said quickly. Because after tonight, he won't ever come back here. The words felt like a fist to my ribs. She wasn't just lying to me. She wasn't just betraying me. She was planning to get rid of me. I took a slow step back, my pulse hammering. I needed to leave now, before they realized I was listening. I turned, moving quickly but quietly back down the corridor, my mind already formulating my next step. This wasn't just about Olivia's secret life. This was about something much bigger, and I was about to rip it all apart. I slipped out the way I came, heart pounding. Olivia wasn't just cheating. She was hiding money, and she was scared I'd find out. I reached the main hall, blending into the murmuring crowd. No one noticed me, but they would soon. I needed to act fast. Pulling out my phone, I sent a single text to Nick. Me, I need you to dig into Olivia's finances. Everything. Seconds later, Nick, how bad is it? I stared at the stage where Olivia had stood, smiling, confident, lying. Me, worse than we thought. I pocketed my phone and walked out, never looking back. Let the game begin. Nick worked fast. By the time I got home, my phone buzzed. Nick, you were right. She's been moving money for months. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Some big transactions, hundreds of thousands. My stomach twisted. Olivia and I were comfortable but not that rich. Me, where's it coming from? A pause. Then, Nick, you're not gonna like the answer. I gritted my teeth. Me, tell me. Nick. Looks like she's getting paid by him. I froze. Me, who's him? Nick sent a name I didn't recognize. But I was about to. I stared at the name on my screen. Vincent LaSalle. I didn't know him, but I knew his type, wealthy, powerful, untouchable. And he was paying my wife. Me, who is he? Nick? High-end investor. But that's just the surface. Dig a little deeper and you find shell corporations, hidden assets, and connections to, let's just say, the kind of people you don't cross. Cold realization settled in my gut. Olivia wasn't just tangled in something shady. She was working for him. Nick kept digging. The truth was worse than I imagined. Nick. She's been laundering money through fake investments. Some accounts are in her name, but some are in yours. My blood ran cold. She's framing me. Nick, looks like it. If this goes south, you take the fall. It all made sense. Olivia wasn't just hiding money. She was setting up an escape. One that left me drowning while she walked away clean. But she made one mistake. She thought I wouldn't fight back. I wasn't going to confront Olivia. I was going to destroy her. Nick sent everything: bank records, fake investments, offshore transfers. I forwarded it all to a lawyer and an anonymous tip line. The evidence was airtight. Then I sent Olivia a single text. Check your accounts. Minutes later, she called. I let it ring. Then another message came through. Olivia, what did you do? I smiled. I just made sure you go down first. It was over. Curtain closed.